Grandma drowned the boogeyman. Most families have some kind of hero in the family tree, some great, or maybe even recent member they point out with pride and say he or she was the first to, or fought in the war and was decorated. You get the gist. In my family, it was my maternal grandmother. Her family claim to fame was having drowned the boogeyman. It was back in 1946 in rural Kentucky. The twins, my oldest sisters, were 5 years old at the time and living with our mother in a small cabin on my grandparents' property. By all accounts, they were quiet, well-mannered children until the arrival of the boogeyman. No one knew where the children had even heard of him, but almost nightly their shrieks of fright roused the households, bringing my grandfather on the run with a shotgun. They became afraid of the dark and would beg for my mother to sit with them until they'd fallen asleep. This went on for weeks, despite the fact that my mother kept reassuring them that the boogeyman didn't even exist. He was just something made up to ensure children behaved, and since they were always good, they'd have nothing to fear anyways. My mother wasn't actually sure there was nothing to fear. For weeks now, there had been odd occurrences in and about the cabin that she was at loss to explain. For one thing, several times when the girls cried out, their room smelled of rotten eggs, and sometimes the window that she was sure had been closed was slightly opened. There were times when she found drag marks in the dirt outside their window, as if someone with a horrible limp had come that way. Privately, she told her father that she worried that the boogeyman might be some hobo lurking about. Although it wasn't unheard of, Grandpa said if that was the case, they'd be more likely to steal a few chickens, and surely they wouldn't dare to come back every single night or have any interest in scaring little girls. Still, that same day, he brought old Jack, his hunting dog, to stay with Mom and the girls. According to Mom, Jack made himself right at home, but steadfastly refused to have anything to do with the girl's room, refusing to even enter it, and at night would growl at nothing she could see. Days dragged by, the boogeyman taking its toll on my mother and the girls, mostly due to lack of sleep. One simply does not go from terrified, screaming, and responding to such screams and expect to be sound asleep easily. They grew pale, and dark circles formed under their eyes. One day, Grandma decided to consult with Aunt Sylvia about the situation. No one knows what transpired between them, but it had to be serious for Grandma to pay a call on a known witch. No one is really certain if Aunt was an honorary title, or if she was truly related in some way. What is known is, when she came back, she volunteered to sit with the girls for the night, and even gave my mom money to see the movie playing in the next town over with her cousins. A rare treat indeed. When Grandma came, she ushered my mom off and set about getting the girls ready for bed. Of course, they did not want to go, so instead, she put them in my mother's room, telling them enough was enough, and she'd take care of that old boogeyman, and he would never ever bother them again. Then she gave them instructions that no matter what they heard, they must not leave the room. It wasn't long before they heard her talking in their room. Grandma was not a soft-spoken individual. "See this broom, you devil? I'm gonna beat you with it. Now get out of here, in the name of Jesus, and never come back." After that, there was a horrible racket that went from one room to another. It sounded like furniture was being overturned. Old Jack was barking up a storm, and Grandma yelling. They heard the back door slam, and running to the window, saw Grandma running down the path, swinging the old broom and shouting Bible verses. After a short while, she returned, telling them they didn't need to worry about the boogeyman anymore, as she had chased him down to the river, where she had drowned him. My mother came home to find the twins sleeping peacefully, her home in this disarray, her broom broken, every window and doorway salted, and Grandma reading the Bible. Whether the result of a theatrical performance by Grandma or some cleaning ritual, the twins never again complained of the boogeyman bothering them. An interesting side note to this, of course the twins told their little friends that Grandma had drowned the boogeyman, but by the time it made its round, reaching adult ears, it was she drowned a man, which much to the amusement of family and her chargeon, brought around the local sheriff with some questions. Small towns, you gotta love 'em. The Boogeyman's entry. Almost everybody who believes in paranormal happenings believes because of events happening to them. These happenings become their personal proof. The following story is the first of many personal proofs for me. This occurred to me when I was younger than 4 years old. At one time, I thought this vivid memory had to be a dream, but then my mother suddenly asked if I remembered seeing the Boogeyman. She told me her story, and I will write it here as well. There are 2 missing gaps in my memory concerning this report. This is a story that begins my lifetime shadow person relationship. It, of course, as most of these things do, happened at night. I'd say it's summer because my window was open. You see, there was this white garage I would look at during the dark parts of night. Light from somewhere illuminated its closest wall, casting shadows upon it. These shadows intrigued me because, to me, they look exactly like a band playing, drum set and all. I would watch them as if they were alive, and sometimes my imagination would make them move. Years later, I would later find out I knew that was a band. My mom once hung with a band I later joined as a lead singer, and as an adult. It was one of those "your mom is who" things that happen all the time in Cambridge, MD. So, later that finally made sense. Back to this particular night. I was watching this shadow band play, when a movement suddenly caught the corner of my eye. I pushed my head against the screen as far as I could, slowly, out of the dark. Something darker came into view. All of a sudden, a human male form, with its back against my wall, appeared. But this person was completely black. This is not African American black, stalking black, or a black mask, literally. There were no colors on this thing. This person was all one solid shape of Sharpie black. He was slick, smooth, and non-reflective. Then he turned his head and looked at me. I do not remember the initial face. I remember the sudden movement, and the absence of face horrified me. But then comes a huge gap in my memory. He is suddenly in my room picking me up. All the indentions and curves of eyes, nose, lips, and even facial features existed, but all color was absent. Imagine painting someone completely black inside and out. There was no color even inside the mouth. It picked me up and kissed me on the lips. This felt like an actual human body, warm and wet. After that, I have no memory. These details stay with me all life. One day, around age 25, I finally told my mother about these weird memories. To my surprise, my mother asked me if I remembered me telling her about the Boogeyman. She told me how I came running out of the room and told her that the Boogeyman was at my window. She told me I was completely adamant about it, but she dismissed it the first time. Later, I emerged claiming the Boogeyman was still there and had become more flustered. My mom said she went into my bedroom and saw the screen had been pushed in sideways. She was very worried and checked around, but nobody was found. Encounter with the Crooked Man. This is a possibly oppressed thing. Hey Reddit, me again. Before I get started, please take a second to read my 2 previous posts about sleep paralysis. I understand that Crooked Man is a child's urban legend, but I already live in a house with a dark presence, thanks. I know, I normally post about what happens when I sleep and sleep paralysis stories and whatnot, but I have one from when I was awake at this time. So, backstory. I was goofing off with my sister and reading the Crooked Man poem, yes, the one from The Conjuring 2, and I found one that was supposedly an urban legend. Dumb me read the poem aloud, and at the bottom, it explains that reading the darker version of the poem aloud summons the Crooked Man. Initially, I just laughed it off. I'm not very superstitious at all. I don't believe in the Boogeyman or any urban legends. I went to sleep that night as I normally do. However, I woke up at exactly 3:33. And if you read my sleep paralysis post, waking up at this time is not uncommon. The difference this night was that I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I was awake. My room was pitch black and it was burning up. And when I say burning up, I mean it was hot as balls. Normally my room is an icebox, but I was sweating buckets. No big deal. Checked my phone, which was on the pillow beside me, and my battery had gone from 90% when I had it put it away to a whopping 23% without usage in the 3 hours I had been asleep. So none of this is too bad, but in my blazing hot as balls room, I felt every hair on the back of my neck stand up. It's like my body saying, "Whoa, something is bad, bad, bad," with no idea of why. So I tried to go back to sleep, and that's when I started to hear the knocking noises. It seemed like they were coming from all around me. The knocking turned into popping sounds. I lay there with my eyes closed until I felt like my bed was actually vibrating. When I opened my eyes, I saw a dark mass move past my window. I attribute this to my eyes just adjusting, but it definitely looked like a man-shaped mass. I lay there for a few more minutes, and the knocking started up again. My closet door, which was shut, was now wide open. All this I can deal with, or at least try to rationalize, but as I lay there, trying to convince myself to go back to sleep, I watched my potted succulent tip off the nightstand next to my bed and crash to the floor. Less than 2 minutes later, 2 books fell from their spaces on the bookshelf across the room to the floor without warning. After this, I notes out pretty quickly and bunked with my sister for the remainder of the night. The next morning, when I entered my room, 3 more notebooks had joined the items on the floor, and my closet light had been switched on. So, my question is, Reddit, what the fuck happened? Did I jinx myself with a crooked man? Or is this something worse? Does this prove my sleep paralysis is more than that? I think it's time for a cleansing. My story of the tall, dark thing. It's a joke almost. I've told my parents, I've told my friends, and I've told my spouse. We laugh and act like it's funny, but in reality, as a grown man, husband, and father of 2 young girls, I'm scared to death of being alone. I was always scared of the dark as a kid. My mother believed it was common and never gave it much thought. Some nights I would be inconsolable, as my mother or father tried to put me to bed. I would kick and scream and beg them not to leave me alone. I don't remember much before my first memory, but obviously what I know now leads me to believe that I've had experiences from a very young age. Earliest memories are basically the same. Multiple times, same story. Earliest time, I was 6 years old in my bedroom. I hear and sense someone come into my room. I open my eyes and see something pitch black and very tall and thin in my room. I can't move, speak, or anything. Odd feeling. I stare at this thing until I obviously pass out and wake up and it's morning. 11 years old. My grandmother retires, and she starts to clean my parents' house during the day a couple times a week for something to do. She enjoys it, and would always bake my siblings and me some treats, win-win. Well, she stopped coming after a month. Never really knew why, but missed the fresh treats after school. Years later, my mom tells me my grandma was freaked out because she kept hearing things and saw a man in the basement. We both kind of laughed and brushed it off. Around the same time, I moved my room to the basement. I was getting older and basement bedrooms were cool. The basement was semi-developed. The plan was to remodel it and have my other grandma move in because my grandpa passed away and she was all alone on the other side of the country. So the basement was 3 sections, my room and the bonus room, separated by a door. The door led to the other half of the basement, not being used because he was being renovated. Not long after I moved into my room downstairs, I am awoken by a loud noise. As I open my eyes, I'm prepared for another sleep paralysis type deal with a dark figure, part of the course. Luckily I didn't see anything, and I could move, and I tried talking and I could talk. So I sit up in bed and I try to hear the noise again, snap. There it is. From my memory, it sounds like dropping a broom on concrete. I get shivers and snap. Again. I get out of bed, and I put my ear to the door and I hear it again. I bawl upstairs and freak out my parents, because I tell my dad there is someone in the basement. He tells my mom to grab the phone and get ready to call 911. He goes downstairs and starts yelling and warning anyone who is down there. He comes back up and says no one's there. Doors and windows locked, etc. Must have been a dream. Okay, I sleep on the couch upstairs the next few nights. The next day, my dad installs a deadbolt and chain lock on my door from our side. Nothing can get in. Tells me never to go in there. Years later, I'm about 14 years old. Basement has been finished for a while. Grandma moved in but has passed away after a short time with us. I'm playing GoldenEye one night, and I hear what sounds like a door slam from the suite. Pause the game and listen. I hear nothing. So I start to play again. I hear the door slam again and pause. I go to the door and put my ear up to it. Nothing. So being a bit older and more brave, I decide to venture inside. I open the door and I remember how cold it was, which at the time didn't strike me as odd, but now it does. The suite didn't have its own thermostat. The rest of the house was warm because the heat was on. Why was the suite so cold? Anyways, I walk in and slowly observe the empty space. I look into the spare bedroom and it's empty. I make my way to my grandma's old room and it's all good. I go into the living room kitchen area and everything looks good. As I make my way back to the door, I feel the need to look down the long hallway to my grandma's bedroom and side door to outside. I see the tall, skinny, dark thing. I remember it so clearly. I remember this being the first time I was in control when I saw it. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, squinted. Remember seeing the door handle, the door hinges, the top of the door on two sides, but there was 100% something pitch black and at least 7 feet tall. It was long. It was longer than the door frame. I ran and locked the door behind me. I was so scared. I went into my room, jumped into bed, and forced my eyes shut. I remember I felt the desire to open my eyes, but I resisted. I pissed the bed. I'm embarrassed, but I was scared shitless. Well, pissless. Almost 20 years old, renting a basement suite. After years of being afraid of the dark and being alone, I sleep with the TV on. It gives me comfort. I wake up in the middle of the night, and the black thing is in the doorway. It looks like a huge cowboy silhouette. I don't know how to describe it. How it looked like a poncho on, and a big hat or something, or maybe it was a big misshaped head. I remember the TV flickering, had no impact on it. There was something there. I say, "Hello?" And I see it move a bit, and I run at it, nothing. It wasn't there. I turn on all the lights and stay up until 7 at work. I have my own home now. I'm the Boogeyman hunter. I show no fear and I check for monsters. The truth is, I've seen this dark pass multiple times in the past 12 years, all the same. I don't get sleep paralysis anymore. I'm able to confront this thing. It never answers me or does anything different. I sense it or hear it and it's there. My mom tells me it's my spirit guide. I laugh. Inside I cry. Ben drowned. Before I tell you this story, I want you to know what a creepypasta is. Creepypasta are stories and tales that are supposed to be scary, and in some cases true. I never thought they were real, and to this day, I still don't think a lot of them are, but one thing is for sure, not all of them are fake. Majora's Mask is a Zelda game made by Nintendo and was very popular, but around a year or so after the release of it, a rumor started going around about a creepy glitch caused by a ghost. The ghost was called Ben Drowned. He looked like the main character, but with bloody tears and scary eyes. The reason I believe in this so much is, for one, I have witnessed it, and two, because Nintendo even confirmed the glitch. Here is how I find out this is true. Note, this just happened. For the past week before me writing it, I've been pretty bored. I was scrolling through the suggestion box on YouTube, and a video randomly popped up of Ben Drowned. Now, up until this point, I never knew or even played Majora's Mask, so I had no idea what it was. The only reason I clicked on the video, therefore, was because the picture looked scary and cool, and I was bored, so thought, why not? I watched a 10 to 11 minute video and became intrigued. Hearing about the glitch made me curious. I'm a girl, but I'm also a huge gamer, and the only reason I've never heard of Majora's Mask was because I usually don't play Nintendo, and hearing about that glitch made me confused. I decided to go online and search a little. Apparently, only a few people have experienced it, due to weird circumstances. Now, of course, at first, I was thinking, this is so dumb. A game can't be haunted. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I soon went to the Nintendo page and looked around for Majora's Mask stuff. I became pale seeing an apology on the site from Nintendo Company, explaining the creepy glitch. They said weird stuff like, this glitch has nothing to do with anything except messed up data. They were very specific, and singled out the fact that it was just messed up data a lot. This gave me a lot of suspicions. Here's where it gets scary. Right after I was done reading the apology, my computer shut off. It was on the charger and it had 87%. I turned it back on only to find that the site cannot be reached. I looked up to see the URL was messed up, all. When I say this, I mean it was 666 every other word. I got a creepy feeling and exited the page, soon forgetting it. I decided to go to this site called cleverbot.com. This isn't a popular site, and there's only around 86 to 100 users for it. To be mentioned is very weird. Keep that in mind. While I was on the site, I got a huge rush of fear and Felt like someone was watching me, and not just watching, I mean staring into my eyes, studying my every movement. Now we are back to today. I was searching random stuff, and Ben Drown was in recent searches. I only searched Majora's Mask and only heard Ben Drown once in the apology. I shrugged it off, maybe thinking I did, and I did search it and just can't remember myself. I clicked it and a quiz pulled up. It said, "Which creepypasta is stalking you?" I just looked at it. What? I thought. I began doing the quiz and started getting an eerie feeling. I got on the Cleverbot site, and my result made me shake with fear. Ben Drown pulled up. Why? Then I read how the quiz knew. Playing Majora's Mask or going on a site called cleverbot.com. I panicked and rushed to go through my history. Sure enough, I had visited Cleverbot the day before today. Then my history rewrote itself, and every single search was Ben Drown. So here I am, and feeling like I'm being watched as I type this, hoping this will teach you. Not every creepypasta is fake.